So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Materias. We have more updates when it comes to the ZANIOLO situation and the fact that Nico is getting closer and closer to leave Roma in this January transfer window. And we'll discuss about this today, if there are any massive updates, what stage we are, if there are going to be key updates in the next coming days. But we can't not start today's stream with some breaking news. Basically, the court in Italy have decided to penalize Juventus 15 points. Juventus will have a 15-point deduction starting from this season. Obviously, it's official. Juventus are going to try and fight back. Juventus is going to try and restrict this number of points. But this is massive news for us because all of that happened with Juventus. It is almost official that Juventus, the court, have decided to penalize Juventus 15 points. How does that change your season? That changes your season because out of the 4 teams which are currently fighting for top 4, which are Napoli, Inter, Milan and Juventus, with a 15-point deduction, there is no part of me which believes Juventus can make top 4, meaning one more gap is there available, which has to be fought until the very last minute between us, Atalanta and Lazio. Effectively, what happens is we have to try and get 5th. We can, obviously, the aim is to get the highest possible. The aim is to get top 4. But if we get 5th this season, then we basically get Champions League next season because Juventus have got a massive deduction. It is basically breaking news. They've decided in these last 10 minutes. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed it. Di Marzio has confirmed it. Everyone has confirmed it. The court has decided to follow this path due to the fact that Juventus have had some economic scandals, some financial scandals and all of that. It's massive news for us. Obviously, Juventus is going to try and fight back. The statement is official, the statement has been clear, but obviously Juventus will try their best to fight back, to maybe restrict the point deduction. But yeah, I mean, the 99.9% in fact, Juventus are going to get penalized starting from this season. That should make your top 4 race easier because we're getting rid of one of our opponents. But at the same time, it also further boosts us to try and compete even more with our biggest rivals, Lazio and Atalanta too, who have been scoring a lot lately and who look as if they're back going. They scored 4 goals in the Coppa Italia. They scored 8 goals in the last Serie A weekend. So massive breaking news. Massive breaking news. But obviously we're a Roma fan channel. I mean, that does involve us because top 4 fight does involve Roma. But we do have to speak about Nico because it's the biggest news of the moment. It's the biggest news of these last few weeks, we should say. Of the January transfer window. Very important because yesterday we had the statement that Nico and Roma decided to part ways. In January, Nico has decided to leave the club. The Fredkins and the ownership, Thiago Pinto and Mourinho also have agreed. If the big offer comes, around 35 to 40 million, 30 to 40 million, I think. I think Roma will start, listening to offers which circulate around the 30 to the 40s. Nothing less than that. 100%. I mean, you can think that Nico is not worth what Roma's asking, but at the same time, Roma need to monetize very much. So I also think it's good to ask quite a lot of money because Premier League teams, especially who are interested in them, I've said it already, values in the Premier League are so high. Teams in the Premier League will show interest in Nico. Teams in the Premier League will 100% offer money for Nico, and we'll definitely discuss about this today. But we've got some breaking news on the Nico situation too, because we're obviously playing La Spezia on Sunday, and ZANIOLO did not get a call-up. However, the significant thing here is that it's not that Mourinho didn't give him a call-up. ZANIOLO himself actually said and made himself unavailable for Sunday's game. I mean, you see, after yesterday's stream, I've received a lot of DMs saying thoughts on Nico leaving, thoughts on Nico wanting to leave, and all of it. And I have to say, I've given up. I've given up because I've always given him chances, starting from this summer. I've given him chances to try and get the faith back to try and re-fall in love with the club, but I've given up because he wants to leave the club. He has wanted to leave the club since this summer. And frankly speaking, no one here is in a position to stop him from doing what he wants. If he wants to leave the club, go on and leave the club. We're not losing Lionel Messi. We're losing a player which 80% of the times this season has barely given impacts to games. We're risking a player with a lot of prospect, and we've said this already, a lot of prospect when it comes to international football, a lot of prospect when it comes to the Italian national team. But at the end of the day, he wants to leave. His dream is to, not his dream, but his desire is to leave the club. We can't stop this. We cannot stop this. And I also think parting ways is the best solution for everyone here. Because Nico can officially do what he wants to do, which is leave the club, experience a new adventure, and at the end of the day, I think the ownership also wants to sell him. I think the ownership has made it clear again since last summer that if the offer came, he was gonna leave. So it's critical hours. It's very important hours because this situation can be unblocked in the space of minutes. It could be unblocked in the space of days. It could be resolved in the summer. It could, Nico can leave in January and will most probably leave in January, but at the same time, he could also leave in June. If the offer doesn't come in these last 10 days of the January window, then he will have to stick with Roma until June, and then obviously in the summer, he will end up leaving. Either way, he's going to end up leaving the club. The big question to ask now is he going to leave now or is he going to leave in the summer? Let him go now. Let him go now because the fact that he's given no, he's refused to make himself available for Sunday's game is unprofessional. He has attitude problems, and this is something which I'll say to whatever club wants to buy Nico. Be aware that you're buying a player who is very fragile when it comes to attitude. He acts like a 3-year-old. That is the reason why he has not shown his full prospect and his full potential at Roma. He hasn't. He's been extremely unlucky, and I'm not trying to hide that, but his attitude is so bad. It could be said that the fact that he doesn't want to stay at Roma is making his attitude worse. But at the end of the day, I've said this in yesterday's stream, and this isn't. I'm not saying this just because it's Nico. This situation, this point which I'm about to say is valid with any player at the club. No one is bigger than the club, and I think something which we got wrong, which Roma fans got wrong, is that we defied him so much. The problem with Roma fans and this Nico situation is that we have kind of, how do you want to say it? We've kind of idolized him since the day he came. Since the day he came, and since the day he said, I'm going to try and be the new Totti at the club, Roma fans, including me myself, were starting to go, oh my God, we have a new Totti at the club. It does not work like that. And I think from the very first day of his Roma career, Nico kind of thought himself of a bigger player than he actually was. It's very easy for a player who comes at Roma and to say, I want to be the new Totti. I want to be the new Totti. It's not that easy, mate. To be the new Totti, you already got the first thing wrong, which is you have to forget about the money. You have to forget about the money. He has had constant thoughts on his wages, on his salary since day one. Let it go. You are not suffering from, you're not going to go bankrupt. You've got the money. Think about the money after you think about the success and the way you play. The thing which he got wrong is that he messed these two things, he kind of mixed the two. He put money in front of him playing at the club. And that is not the good way. So, I've said this already yesterday, he's not being honest. The solution to everything is that he's not being honest. And, that's the situation. Anyways, let's not repeat what we said yesterday. What I was going to say today is that two teams are very interested in him. Tottenham and West Ham, both Premier League clubs. Both clubs are very interested in him. The only problem is that both clubs are currently insisting on a loan with a potential obligation to buy him back, or to buy him on a permanent move. And Roma don't want loans. We've seen Roma following this approach with many players. We've seen Roma follow this approach with Shomurodov. Roma is not accepting loans. You want Shomurodov, you keep Shomurodov, you pay for Shomurodov. And the same with Nico. Tottenham have shown interest in him. Tottenham have presented offers to Roma in these last hours. West Ham did too. But all of these offers have involved loans. And Roma, Thiago Pinto has basically shut down all loans. He wants to monetize, he wants to give Nico away as soon as possible and get that money as soon as possible to then, immediately reinvest it. And that's how it should be. We should not loan him, we should sell him. If we loan him, and then one day he comes back to Rome, we will always have this constant thought of Nico not being happy at the club. He's publicly said he doesn't want to stay. We've heard this since quite a long while. He's refused to make himself available for a call-up on Sunday's game. We have everything, we have every single ingredient available to kind of understand that he doesn't want to stay at the club. Therefore, why do we loan him? We only have to sell him. We have to sell him permanently, get him away at the club. If he doesn't want to be linked with the club, if he doesn't want to stay at the club, we better get him away as soon as possible, so we can avoid interior problems. And that's something very, very important to understand. West Ham and Tottenham have both presented offers to Nico's agent and Roma, but Thiago Pinto is shutting down. The only way to see Nico leave the club in these 10 days is for a club to present an offer to Roma involving a permanent deal with around 30 to 40 million euros. I know, I've said this at the start. You may think Nico's not worth that. And to be honest with you, I don't blame you. But you also need to understand that if teams don't satisfy these 30 to 40 million demands, Nico's not going anywhere. So yeah, that's the important situation. Clubs are preparing moves. Clubs are gonna prepare moves in these next couple of hours. I've also received questions asking, do you think Nico will leave in January? Do you think he'll leave? He'll leave in the summer. I think it's hard to see Nico be sold in the space of 10 days. I do definitely think this. But I do also think that now that he's made himself unavailable for Sunday's game, and therefore made himself unavailable for a call-up, suggests that maybe something is happening. It maybe suggests to me that his agent is kind of, gathering together some big offers to present Roma. But I want to see him go. You know what? I love Nico. Do I? That's the question. Do I love Nico after he thinks he's bigger than the club? No, I don't love Nico. I appreciated Nico since he was a Roma player. That brace against Porto with Di Francesco sitting on the bench when he was like 19 years old, that Champions League race, his 2 ACLs, we've supported him a lot. The fans have supported him. The fans have been with him. The fans absolutely love him, and I think this is something you can definitely tell from the stadium vlogs I provide to you. When the speaker announces the lineup, he's the only one who gets the claps, basically. I appreciated your job. I appreciated your time at Roma. But you've disappointed me. You've disappointed me because you've not been honest. You've disappointed me because you have compared yourself to a gladiator and to Francesco Totti, but yet you've given up after the first boos you received at the stadium. That's not gladiator mentality. That's not where you know, if you came to Rome thinking that was the path Totti followed to become what Totti has become, then what is it? You're living in Pinocchio land, mate. I think what he got wrong is his attitude, which has been influenced by the media, and also lately he's given up too early. He's given up on the boos. You know, a life of a football player involves ups and downs. And one thing which I've understood from Nico in his time at Roma is that he doesn't accept the downs. He doesn't accept the boos at the stadium. Is it a coincidence that after those boos that he received 1 week ago when we played Genoa in the Coppa Italia, is it a coincidence that after those boos, 1 week later, he's now very close in leaving the club? There is no coincidence in that. It's all linked. He's given up too early. But at the same time, I'll say it again. If he wants to leave the club, he has to leave the club. Because I think parting ways right now will benefit him. Because if he's not enjoying life at Roma, he better seek for a new adventure. And he's also, you know, it's also a benefit for the club, who I think did want to sell him since last summer, didn't manage to find a proper offer which satisfied the club's demands. But as things stands, I think he's going to leave in January. And I think these next couple of days, these next couple of hours even, are going to be very critical and very important when it comes to the evolution of this Nico situation. One thing which I've read is that if Nico gets sold in these last 10 days of the transfer window, Thiago Pinto would prepare an all-in to sign both Fratesi and Aouar, potentially in the same transfer window. We haven't got confirmations in that. That is just something which an article has mentioned. But, you know, expect Thiago Pinto to prepare an assault to, to one player. If we get the money from the Nico deal in these last 10 days of the transfer window, I would expect Thiago Pinto preparing an assault to sign someone in these last days. And all of these, apparently, people are describing Thiago Pinto's potential assault with Nico's money if we sell him in these next 10 days on both Aouar and Fratesi, potentially both at the same time, which I think would massively boost the club. But yeah, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, clubs are there. Clubs want him. Clubs have proposed offers, but as things stand, Roma does not have that clinching offer in their hands, which has made them say yes to a club. Right, let me read some opinions, and then we're going to end the stream. I'm still waiting for the 200 Milan push-ups. Well, I did do them in a match reaction, which then got cancelled because to test the loyalty of fans. Nico should go. I like him, but so inconsistent and think that would unlock Tammy and Volpato can get more points. With Arsenal going for Kiwior, the door could be open for Ndika coming to Roma. Nice thinking, Faggiorino. Really, really. Yep, that could be. And again, now that they've bought Kiwior, and now that Nico's about to leave the club, let's say we get 35 million from the deal, maybe we can get someone like Aouar and Ndika, or someone like Fratesi and Ndika. The Ndika bracket is something very intelligent, which I actually haven't thought about. But now that Arsenal have bought Kiwior, it's significant. So I like that, Faggiorino. Can't believe we get 40 million for Nico. He's a max 10 goals and assist winger. Maybe after that 4-2 beating Spurs took will make them desperate to buy Nico. But again, another thing is, I'm not trying to obstacle any of this, but would he even start at Tottenham? I don't think he would. Simon, I'll have to disagree with you a bit. As a former athlete here, you have to think about the money because an athlete's career is short and clubs don't care about players. Well, yeah, but you see, you have got the money. Don't think... I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, athletes have got money in their pocket. What athletes have to think about is not money. And another thing which I think the ownership has done really well is that the ownership didn't say that they weren't going to give an increase in wages to him. They just said that increase in wages had to be earned on the pitch. And they were absolutely spot on. you know, Nico, realistically speaking, apart from the fact that he won us the Conference League last season by scoring a hat-trick against Bodo and a goal in the final, does he deserve that increase in wages? Again, I think we're done speaking about increase in wages because Nico is going to leave the club. So that's a closed parenthesis. And something which Nico didn't digest well was the fact that Roma gave an increase in wages to Mancini and Cristante, but not Nico. That's the thing. The thing which irritates me is that you don't have to think about money. You're not going to starve to death. You've got the money and all of that. At this point, Nico, he hasn't showed that fighting spirit anymore. The Tammy and Dybala chemistry is heaven sent. Giving Belotti a chance and bringing in players who want to be part of the project. Spot on. What could have been injured if not for his injuries? We should look at the young players like Elise from Crystal Palace. Well, if you're going to care about money, don't claim to be the new... Exactly. That's the summing up of everything. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, massive news today. As I said at the start, massive breaking news because the court in Italy has decided to give a 15-point deduction to Juventus, which should make your top 4 race a teeny clinching a bit easier. We still have to fight against Lazio and Atalanta, but you know, Juventus are 99.9%. Gonna get this 15-point deduction starting from this season, which could basically cut them out from European tournaments, let alone Champions League. Juventus are gonna fight back to try and maybe limit some of these decisions, but they are gonna have a penalty deduction, a point deduction, and it's around the 15 points. And that is breaking news because that is massive news for us. Because if we get 5th, then it's as if we get top 4, if you see what I mean. But I'm definitely going to keep you updated, even though this is not a Juventus fan channel. But it does involve us, so I'll definitely keep you updated when it comes to that. But yeah, if you haven't already, please make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I will catch you tomorrow for the match preview of the Spezia game. Mourinho is not speaking again this weekend. And yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow for the match preview, predicted 11 and all of that. Important news on Nico today, important news on the Juventus side, and yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Take care and enjoy your Friday night. Simon out.